Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today. We appreciate you attending. We've got a joint webinar here with Advanced Media Technologies. I'm Tim Sullivan on the Enterprise Sales Account Management team. Then we've got two fantastic speakers, one that we've done a lot of work with. We want to really appreciate Olson's time. And we're going to be talking about the innovating patient experience that Amino and AMT and Mayo Clinic have built. John Olson is the Senior Media Systems Engineer at Mayo Clinic. Then we also have our partner from Amino, Jonny Mckee. He's the VP of Product Management at Amino. And so we've got a Q&A planned for the end. So please feel free in the top right hand to submit any questions that you may have throughout the webinar, and we'll be sure to get to those before we get to the end. The topic and theme here is all about how Amino has been able to help in the healthcare industry. And AMT came along and Amino brought us along, and we started this project several years back with the H200 and the Mayo Clinic. So I've got a few questions here for John that I want to go over and just kind of get the conversation started, if you're good with that, John.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So, one of the questions a lot of people have is, what did the clinic have in place, before implementing Amino's solution, and what was really the need to go to this new option?
Yeah. So we were, about 10 years ago is when we started our journey getting off of the traditional coax video distribution system we had. And when we switched to building our own interface for IPTV, and that kind of started our journey with using different Android players. And when we had done that, we'd evolved into a patchwork of players, screens, and one-off workflows. It kind of worked until it didn't.
Sure.
And with security, working in the healthcare industry, security is our top
Okay.
item that we look for. And that's when we, looking at different devices, we finally had discovered Amino that we're currently with today.
So obviously the HIPAA laws and things like that come into play. So that's a big part of the security. I can understand that.
Yeah, and it's always evolving. That's the thing.
Yeah, right. One of the other, and I think you touched on this on the security side, but one of the things that always comes up is, why Amino? What other than maybe the security piece did they have that really helped your solution?
Yeah, it gave us kind of a standardized stack.
Okay.
From having different one-off players or bright sign players, random and play, it gave us one device that we could use for multiple different scenarios, from IPTV to digital whiteboards to digital signage. It's a very agnostic device. But the biggest thing was the back-end management
Okay.
and the support that Amino gave us, really giving us the ability to customize that back end to fit, with the security parameters that we were facing, and getting the devices just on our network in general, and being able to trust them on the network.
Great. Yeah, I know with Amino in the management system, obviously you're working with a dedicated support ticket system and ongoing. But one of the other features that they offer is the website, basically the support site that lists all the APIs and things like that. So I'm sure that comes in handy if you've just got a quick question, hey, I've covered this before, but where do I go for that resource? So if you use or utilize that at all, if you could just take a minute.
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking on the API calls, their API documentation has been fantastic. We really utilize that a lot with just basically onboarding our devices, using those API calls to talk to our backend for our device management. Has been amazing. So having the documentation that Amino has put out there to be able to quickly find what you're looking for and how to do it is very helpful on the support site. So what you
Great.
were kind of looking for? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. No, and obviously there's a reason for all this, right? And that's the patient experience. What was the top priorities for, improvement on the staff and patient experience side?
Ultimately, it all comes down to having a device that works. And when a patient goes into a room, it's their first impression of a
Hmm.
hospital. And of course, being Mayo Clinic, we want all of those to be the best experience for our patient. And a lot of times, the TV was overlooked. It was one of those things in a construction thing that, oh, this is going to kind of come in last. But now it's kind of the forefront of it with the digital whiteboards. And so not having issues in a room and, a patient's able to turn the TV on and it just works
Right.
is fantastic. On that other end of it is when there is an issue, Amino has been able to provide us with those tools to remotely be able to get into that back end of it, see exactly what's on the screen and use the soft remote to fix a quick issue. So that's kind of on that end of it is where we went from that. Just looking at my notes here, I think we'll probably get into some more of the virtual nursing and all that we use the Amino for. So
Okay. Yeah, the other question I had was, how did the pandemic affect planning and implementation? I'm sure this, as I remember, we're going back, 5 years, and I think that it's been pretty close that you guys have been talking and working with Amino to that time frame.
it was exactly about the time that COVID came up. We had an older Android player that we were managing through AirWatch. That support had really kind of gotten cut. We were starting to lose some of our devices on the network. We weren't able to remotely control them. But COVID gave us that opportunity to, when everything kind of stopped, it allowed us to start working with Amino and with their engineers to help develop and work through the H200 and the different parameters and going through with them and saying, okay, here's what we need this device to be able to do. And they were very quick in the background to implement different parameters. We'd get testing. So COVID was, in a way, a blessing for us because it gave us that time to work with Amino without having all the other distractions to help develop the H200 and the parameters that we needed.
Great. So what support, I know you've talked about that, did Mayo receive from, Amino and AMT during this project? Is there anything that sticks out that you'd like to touch on?
Yeah, I mean, I've got my notes that, Amino and AMT were true partners, not just vendors. Amino's engineers, co-developed the parameters, the APIs we needed, delivered us some beta firmware on our schedule, sat in on some of our security reviews for our standards. They helped, validate all of our multicast IGMP design and engage templates and workflows. AMT was critical, though, when we needed to get a large quantity of these when we started to deploy. Working with AMT was a fantastic.
Well, we
I've always
appreciate
said,
that.
yeah, I've always said, Amino is probably the best vendor we've ever worked with, and same with AMT on being able to deliver the products in a timely manner when we really needed them to get our old devices replaced, so that it was not affecting patient care.
Yeah, we try to keep a healthy supply chain coming through, right? That's the value.
That saved our butt.
Yeah, the stocking distributor method really works for us with this product, and I hope that continues. We try to do our best for planning, look into the crystal ball and see what we can see. So absolutely, we appreciate the compliments there. Were there any standout moments in the support or collaboration? I know you touched on a number of different things, but I didn't know if there was anything specific maybe that
So, when we started working with virtual nursing and having, COVID kind of brought this time frame where it's like, the providers wanted a way to beam into a room quick, check on a patient without necessarily having to go into that room. And we'd worked with a bunch of different vendors on things, but what really highlighted it was working with Amino and having the ability to have the RS-232 control
sure.
on the Amino box. That allowed us to, say when a doctor is calling into a patient's room, now that call sends, with the API calls, sends a note to the box. The box switches its inputs, pauses that current TV show, shows the provider. It can even mute and unmute the TV, and that was really pivotal in working with Amino and getting that developed. So that was a huge benefit, and being able to not have a secondary screen, which a lot of places do for those virtual meetings where you have a second smaller monitor, but now we're able to switch inputs, mute the calls, and
Okay.
use one screen instead of multiple screens.
So one thing that came to mind, are you using the power over Ethernet feature on the
That
majority of
was
yours?
It was funny because when we were looking at different players, that was one of those top things that I was like, man, if we could get a player that was PoE, that would just be fantastic.
Right.
Having the ability to run this over power over Ethernet is one of the most valuable tools um, that the box has going for it. We use that everywhere with all 6,000 players we have. Um, that's the best. One of the
Yeah.
best. There's a lot of good
Right.
points, but that was a big. That was a big
Yeah.
mark that we wanted to see.
So one of the looking ahead, into the future and into that crystal ball, how does Mayo see this solution evolving in the healthcare sector?
The nice part is, and how we're evolving, which we're evolving quickly, is using it for using that, like I touched on earlier, is using that single device and that single
Right.
back end management to control not just like our IPTV content, but also to control our digital signage needs. So the signage that we have outside of the patient rooms, even the digital whiteboard that is in the patient room, being able to control that. We've used the Zapper application on the Amino box
Okay.
to play all of our lobby players. So we want to just say, I only want these 5 channels to play in a lobby, and I just want it to work, and I just want it to play all the time. That's where that Zapper has worked out well there. But again, having one device that can do a range of different things gives us a lot of control from one backend management and one set of API calls.
Yeah, to touch on that, I think I've been involved in some conversations and with 6,000 players, right? I can only imagine how many different screens are behind, those units are behind. So trying to get the same batch of TVs or monitors and have that kind of connectivity, the single
Yeah,
management.
everybody wants to, there's that thinking of, well, we should just run everything directly on the TV. And, in theory and thinking about it, well, that's great. Then we're eliminating this other device and just running on the TV. But TVs change, the sizes change. And
Yeah,
when you've already got a mismatch of TVs out in the field, the Amino box is kind of that one standard that we always know is going to run here. And we have different digital whiteboards that are in either portrait mode or landscape mode. And it's nice to be able to tell my technicians out in the field, don't even worry about having to, worry about changing the settings on that TV to flip that image. I'll just do it right on the back end through Amino, and I can take care of it through there without having them worry about trying to go into the settings on a Samsung or an LG or a Sony and making sure
sure.
that fits right. That was one of the nicest things was, oh, I'll just flip the image in Amino and do it on the
Right.
box level, and it doesn't matter what type of TV you're using.
Absolutely. That's great. John, were there any other notes or comments you wanted to make? I think that's it for my direct questions, but I didn't know if you had any
Yeah,
other input
the
or.
one of the biggest things too is what we've touched on is the support. Anytime I run into a question, it wouldn't necessarily be an issue that we're seeing, but I'll be trying to do something. It's probably in the documentation and I'm just not finding it, but I can put a ticket in with Amino and they are Johnny on the spot to getting back to me and and helping explain, hey, here's how you do it. And if you want to do in the future, you can reference it here. Extraordinarily helpful engineers that actually know what they're working on and what they're doing. That's been the nicest part of this.
Awesome. We appreciate that, John. And I know you're going to stick around for some Q&A here.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it, really. It only makes my job easier, so.
Well, that's what we're here to do, right? To make your job easier. If it wasn't for problems, we wouldn't have a job. So we appreciate it.
Yeah.
I've got Jonny Mckee here from Amino, and he's got some information to share with the group here. So let me tee up some slides here. I know, Jonny, I'll let you kind of take it away, and I'll have these here up for you in just a moment as we get through our technical difficulties.
And some kind words, John. Appreciate that. I'll pass them on to the support team.
Yeah, I always try to let them know that too when I talk to them, but they are fantastic. And it doesn't even seem to matter what time it is where they're at. They're very responsive.
Yeah, and I think a knowledgeable support team. We aim to have a level 1 support team who can answer questions. They're not just pushing tickets to other places. So I think we achieve that. Okay, so I've got a few slides. I just thought it gives a little bit of structure to what I was going to talk about. So, the obvious thing is talking about features and what we do. John's talked about our H200 media players. So these are enterprise grade 4K device. We've got power over Ethernet. The way I look at this, it's very easy to look at all media players as being equal. It's a black box. It has a series of ports. It's all of the other things that aren't obvious that really make the difference. And hopefully I'll go into that and I'll explain in a little bit more detail why I think our products are different and why it has the end result that John and other customers find once they start deploying. So it's not just about features, it's about a lot of the other little details that we put into the product.
Right.
One of the big details we put into the product, though, is the cloud management system.
Sure.
That really differentiates a lot of what we do, because we take it very seriously. It's easy to deploy thousands of devices. It's very hard to manage them over years in the field as technology changes, as your network changes, the environment changes, and a lot of environments that these devices go into are not easy to access. So Mayo, for example, this is going into a healthcare environment. You cannot interrupt the operation of a hospital to go and change a device, change a setting, upgrade firmware.
Right.
We have devices in retail across large territories. Again, same scenario. The cost of sending an engineer out to do even the minor change to a device is huge, and it would take months across some of the deployments that we've got. So cloud management, being able to do everything remotely, zero-touch provisioning, remote management, remote diagnostics, it's absolutely vital, and it's one of the things that our customers keep bringing up time and time again. It's absolutely a game changer for them. And then we talked about security a few times, and there is, there's the healthcare specific things that, obviously HIPAA and the things that John would be thinking about every day. At a lower level, we take security very seriously. So we provide regular security updates. So we would provide us a quarterly security patch release at a minimum. Okay, if there was a CVA, if there were issues raised, we would we'll quickly patch it. But we have a quarterly security patch update. That's in contrast.
And then how would you access John. Yeah. So, you know, Johnny, how would you access that if you're the average customer? Is that through the support site or part of the management platform or both?
Well, it's both. So we take security seriously. We provide our firmware and our builds and our security updates to all customers. Okay, so they're available. You can download them through the support site if you're a customer who, for example, there are some customers, for example, who are not allowed to use cloud systems because of, for
Right.
example, military security, for example, or some of our devices go into that sort of environment. You can't use the cloud. So they would have a different way of managing devices. They would download the builds from the website. If you've got the cloud management platform, the security updates and the firmware updates are published directly into your domain within the cloud platform, and you simply configure the device to take that update. So, but you know, I think it's a good point, Tim. You know, we make those security releases available to everybody. We're not saying, oh, you must have a particular support agreement or only certain customers with a cloud platform can have access, because I don't think it's acceptable in today's environment to have devices that are running Android 11 and 10 and 9, and you know, I just think that's disgraceful, and people are running them.
Right.
We insist on keeping to the latest security patch levels. Okay, and I
Awesome.
think it's really important, and it's going to become more important.
Yeah, definitely today.
Yeah. So if you want to go to the next slide, Tim.
Yeah.
So then, you know, I was asked about what made the platform purpose built for, you know, this sort of environment, and you know, I think about all of the things we do. It's a ruggedized platform. The mounts for Visa mounting the device onto
Sure.
behind TV are incorporated into the chassis. You're saving money that way. It's more convenient, it's a quicker, easier install. John's already mentioned the power over Ethernet. I've mentioned remote management. We've mentioned security. They're the big things that stand out, and we can talk about them. But what I also find is it's the little things, and this is what is hard to replicate. Amino have been in this business for over 2 decades, and it's the little things you pick up from the experience from working with customers that you realize, as a product manager, you would never have thought of that. But when you talk to the customer in the real world, you realize, well, that's an important feature. And when you think about the use cases, then you understand them. And over 2 decades of building this stuff and this knowledge into the product, there are a lot of little details in there which never make it onto a slide. We rarely talk about, but they delight our customers. And, you know, John talked about the API. I think, you know, some of our APIs, so for example, with a local API on the device that allows you to interact with it from lots of different systems and local networks and from the cloud. That seems like a simple idea, but it's really powerful, and it's evolved over time with lots of things added into that have, you know, come not just from ideas that people in the product management team or engineering team in Amino have, they come from our customers, you know, and we take that feedback back into the business, and we roll that back into the product every day. So, you know, when Mayo were going through the early stages of this project, we were working closely with them together. We were doing builds, we were enhancing APIs to meet their needs. We all benefit from that. You know, we get the sale, we build a better product together. It serves Mayo Clinic's needs. And so while I can call out the big features, the things on this slide, I think what really makes the platform difference is the little details, the you know, ability to, you know, easily configure something, to easily set up a video stream, to easily switch to a different application on the same device so it can have multiple purposes, to be able to stream syslog into the cloud. I could keep going on, but that's my point.
Yeah.
This is not easy to do. You can't suddenly just take any old media player, stick an OS onto it, and think you've got a quality product. And I think that's where we differentiate ourselves.
Yeah, I think, you know, one thing I'd like to touch on the ruggedized, the housing, that I've had numerous conversations at trade shows. Customers are, you know, kicking the tires, looking at stuff. They always want to try and break something, right? So the easiest way to break something is to have a button or a reset that a customer can access. And I think the great thing about that housing is it's very difficult to reset that box back to factory. You'd have to be looking specifically for it, especially if it's behind a monitor or TV or what have you. And then no buttons really other than your either control through serial control or the remote control itself, right? So
yeah.
Well, and to your point on that, there is a small reset button, but the nice part is you can disable that in a parameter on the Amino box. So if you don't want that, you don't want, the text to be able to do that, we'll just turn it off. That's what we found actually really helpful.
Yeah, and that's the sort of feature that we've got, again, from experience with customers. So, if you want to go to the next slide, Tim,
sure.
There are hundreds of use cases, and some of them surprise us. So John just mentioned being able to disable things like the reset in software. We introduced a number of things, the ability to disable a whole range of features because we were working with a customer who was deploying in prisons. And I got some really interesting requests and surprises about things you want to do where your devices are going into e-learning systems, communication systems, and entertainment in correctional facilities. So those are the sorts of things where we'll deploy a product for one reason. It will typically maybe go in for a single use case, and it'll evolve from there. So I can think of examples where we've put platforms in to simply serve low latency video. Several years later, that same platform is being used also for signage. It's being used to integrate with point of sale systems. It's in front window displays. And we get to the stage that the customer values having a single platform with a single management system so much that it is the first question if I'm going to deploy new technology, new software into a store, for example.
Sure.
Will it run on the H200? Will it run as part of the existing infrastructure I have? So that's a really nice position to be in, but it shows how much our customers value all of the things that we do with management, with the platform that is very adaptable. And I think John's comment about standard stack, I think that's the key to this.
Right.
So we're running on an Android platform now. It's open source Android, which gives us a really good operating system, which is every developer or every development organization knows how to build Android apps, or we have a browser on it so they can build HTML apps. And it then becomes very, very flexible. So we've got a lot of enhancements around the OS, but we've got a core flexible OS that allows you to run lots of different applications. So it allows us to do anything from, for example, the government military use cases where we sell the products. Those, I don't know a huge amount about those use cases because nobody will tell me, but I get questions.
Well, we can tell you, but you don't want the end result.
Yeah. And then there's healthcare, there's prisons, and there are a dozen other use cases. So I find quite exciting. It's a product that's really quite interesting to manage because I can get some really bizarre and interesting requests, and it just all feeds back into the product of what we do to enhance it. And then, of course, the remote management, the zero-touch provisioning, as I've already touched upon, that gives customers, a lot of value.
Yeah, I can touch on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say on the, to touch back more on the government, military, and sensitive applications. The one thing that I've always heard and it's been mentioned in these conversations is, and John mentioned it earlier, utilizing the Zapper for just local internal communication because they don't want it connected to the cloud, right? They want it just in their own facility. It's a secure facility. You can't take information in or out. They wanted a box without Wi-Fi, right? And we can touch on that a little bit because this unit does have a sister product called the H200W, which is a Wi-Fi box, right? So you can separate the two for the different applications that you need to.
Yeah. And that's a good point because I think in some of those applications, it's not enough to just disable the Wi-Fi. It's critical that the device does not even have a radio. So
Right.
that's why we've kept that as two completely separate products.
Awesome.
Okay. So if you want to go to the last slide that I have, Tim. So, we talked a lot about technology. We talked about how this evolves very often, in my experience, from one use case to many, and that's about the flexibility of the technology. It is about building products with our customers, we're not just for them. I don't honestly think I can second guess the requirements our customers have. And we learn an awful lot from these sorts of interactions. So, I really appreciate the sort of interaction and partnership we have with John and the team at Mayo. And really, that's what it's about. It's that collaboration and partnership, and that is where it works best. We have some of our best customers are really good, close partners. We have regular QBRs with them. And we share a product roadmap, and we make sure we deliver the features on that roadmap. It's not just roadmaps are real. We try to prioritize the features and make sure that we deliver them for our customers. And I think that goes a long way as well to making this successful product. And of course, I was going to bring up support because I always hate leaving it. It always seems to be an afterthought, but John brought it up right at the start. So I appreciate that and the kind words and support. I think it makes such a difference.
Yes.
We've got our really good support team, and as I said, our level 1 support team are really good technical engineers, and they're backed up by level 2, and they're backed up by engineering. So I think that makes a difference, and it means when you do have difficult problems, which we all experience sometime, the right people are available quickly to resolve them, and that's what makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I know personally with our internal partnership, we bring a lot of stuff to you guys that comes to us as the first line of defense, if you will. So we've got our person on staff who will handle initial troubleshoot calls and things, and then we can escalate those, right?
Yeah.
And I think that works out really well. So we have an understanding of what our needs are. So when we have our QBR meetings, we can talk about those applications and what's needed and what the future holds and looks like. So we definitely appreciate that, and look forward to keeping that conversation on support going.
Okay.
So let me stop sharing there. And we've got some questions that sure may be coming through. If you have any questions, I do see there's a couple in there, and we've got a few here that we received. Let me grab them here. So one of the first questions we have is, what is Amino doing to enhance their product set, which is specific to healthcare? I think that's one.
Yeah, so we've got a few integrations going on right now, so that are very definitely specific to healthcare. So we are doing integrations with some of the major healthcare providers of systems for patient records. Okay, so again, using the flexibility we've got in our devices to bring together the same device and the same single screen to allow a patient to view their healthcare records as well as their entertainment. I see potential for that to extend into other things like video calls, etc. So that's one thing that's underway at the minute. We also have integrations with pillow speakers, and I can see
Sure.
the need maybe for more of that. So that's something that's very specific to healthcare. There are other things that we do that I think go across a number of different industries and verticals. So we've been doing some quite interesting work recently with PTZ cameras, just to ensure that we have better integration with some of those systems, being able to support some of the different use cases they have with multiple cameras deployed in auditoriums, multiple different streams being fed into H200 devices across a campus. So those are the sorts of things where maybe it isn't direct healthcare, but I can still see use cases within healthcare, and so the healthcare customers and partners can benefit from that. So those are a few of the things we have happening right now. One other thing that I think is relevant within healthcare is really what we do within IPTV. Now I know John and the Mayo team run their video system today onto the H200. We're also we've got a long heritage of IPTV solutions. We also have hospitality solutions now running on H200 that are certified with B2B. So some of the first Android TV certifications in the world going into hotels and hospitality, certified in the Google B2B program. So while I don't have any of those into healthcare environment right now, I do think it's something that's very relevant, and I think we will start to see in the next few years that the Android experience starts to get into the hospitals and into healthcare. And then it's about bringing together that with all of the other things that you need and that you do in healthcare. So I think that's relevant. It's quite exciting. It's new for us, and I think we're leading the way there. And I think, again, there's the opportunity to bring multiple different use cases together.
Great. The next question looks like we've got here is for John. And the question was, the 6,000 units you referenced at Mayo Clinic, are those spread across just multiple sites, or is it just there at the main facility, or how have you deployed those, John?
Yeah, so we've deployed the Amino boxes throughout our entire enterprise. So from, our three main hospitals are, Rochester, Jacksonville, Florida, and Phoenix, Arizona. And then we have health system sites that are sprinkled throughout the Midwest as well. And we've implemented our player throughout those. Of course, it's been nice because each one has a different time zone. So that's a parameter within the back end that you can change. So yeah.
Cool.
Good question.
So yeah, and then this might be a joint question that you might both know some answers to, but speaking of ruggedized, have any customers requested an H200 variant that has an IP rating, perhaps IP44 or greater? So that's beyond my knowledge. So I don't know, Johnny, if you have some feedback there.
I have not had that request, I have to say.
Okay.
I've had requests for high temperature models and things like that, but I haven't had
Sure.
one with an IP rating, which, yeah, it's an interesting question. The challenge there for me is there the demand to do that, to hold a different SKU, or is it something maybe better done by a specialist who retrofits a different chassis onto the existing product? But yeah, it's an interesting question. It's one I haven't had, and I'm not sure. I'm surprised I haven't had it now that I think about it. But yeah, the high temperature one is one that comes up occasionally.
So we can touch base on it after the webinar, and I'll get back to them, get them an answer. We've got another question here. So what was the time frame when Mayo and Amino first discussed a potential solution to coming up with the test platform to the actual trial there at the Mayo Clinic? So I guess the timeline, kind of turnaround time frame. I seem to remember, but I'm sure the conversation started before me, but I seem to remember it was far enough back that I can't remember. That's if I can answer.
It's about 2021 where we started developing with Amino right during COVID. I would say we worked with Amino for about a good 6 months going through parameters, and then with the shortage of hardware during that time, then it was nice to work with AMT to be able to get in that supply and push. So we started pushing replacing devices within about a year of starting to work with the Amino device.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, a lot of people have to plan. One thing that COVID taught us is product availability, right?
Yes.
So chipsets, things like that. So we planned ahead, and that was fortunate. With things changing all the time and tariffs, things like that, we have to still continue to plan ahead for products and lead time. So yeah, that planning and working in that partnership is key. Another question we've got here, and again, I think both of you can shed some light on this, is we've got a question. I'm curious about how you are handling pillow speaker control and audio routing.
We've gone away from, on our end, we've really kind of gone away from the pillow speaker. There are some different use cases where we do use the audio out on the box and take that into a separate DSP for ceiling speakers, which has been very handy to do that. But we've gone away from using pillow speakers primarily.
Okay. You have anything to throw in there, Jonny, as far as, pillow speakers?
Yeah, and look, I'm not the expert on how these are used. Some of the rest of the team have been doing more of the work in this, but I knew that Mayo were not using this, but we do still see demand from our healthcare customers. So I think it still is an important integration, important part of the product. So we did a lot of work just to make sure that the key handling and mapping things through to the key presses on the H200 works, so then the control works from the pillow speaker onto whatever application we implements, and it's integrated correctly with the Android OS. So that was where we did an awful lot of the work. So I can't say very much about the audio routing. I recall a couple of different ways that this was implemented by some of our partners, but that tends to be handled by system integrators who are putting the screens, the boxes, and all of the other pieces into the puzzle. We were handling that integration directly from the remote control buttons on the pillow speaker into the device.
Okay. So on that question, what I'll do is I'll follow up, Jonny, and we can get an answer back from the team. Sure. On we've got another question here. What is Mayo using for a CMS/digital signage platform? When Mayo selected Amino, did they migrate to a new CMS signage platform? If so, from what to what, right? So, I guess it's more about the platform you're utilizing, or if you're just utilizing the features within the device.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually kind of switching, who we're using for digital signage at the moment, but the device hasn't changed. That's one of our requirements, with the CMS, is that we want to be able to use this device and run, that single Android app on it and be able to manage it that way. I don't want to get into specifics of, who we've gone with and what we're using for that, but that's our requirement, is that it runs Android and runs on our H200.
Sure. Yeah, and I know, Jonny, from my experience with Amino, I know you guys have certified with dozens of different CMS vendors, and we can provide that list. So I'll do that for the person on this question. And if there's anything you want to throw in there, Jonny, about CMS and digital signage.
We have, as you say, we've worked with quite a few. We're fairly agnostic, and from our perspective, it's often again customer driven, but it's not a big integration typically for us, because we've got an Android platform that runs a good modern browser. So just about every CMS I see, there's sometimes a bit of work and fine tuning, but it's a fairly straightforward thing, so we can be fairly agnostic and give customers choice.
Great. So I've got one more question here. So if anyone else has a question you want to throw into the chat, please do so. The notes I've made here, I'll make sure that we get some answers back to the individuals that had other questions directly. So we hear a lot about the Amino management platform. How does that benefit your customers from a commercial point of view on the enterprise side?
Well, the way I look at it, there's different phases in the life cycle of the device, and you need to think about it separately. The management system combined with the firmware and other things that we do, allow you to do zero-touch provisioning. So we have customers, for example, who simply post a box out to staff with no technical skills in a particular location, and those staff will install the device themselves. So you plug in the power over Ethernet cable and you plug in the HDMI cable, and you should be able to walk away. So that is, first of all, a major cost saving. You're not having to send technicians across a country. John's talking about 6,000 devices installed. That sort of thing has a very significant cost. So we do everything we can in that provisioning stage to eliminate that cost. So you configure all of your the OS version you want to install, the configuration parameters you want for that OS, the application are all configured in the management system. When that device connects to the network, it will first of all check if there are updates to be pulled down from the management system, and it will update all of that data, the firmware, the config, before it reboots and starts the application. So that's a big cost saving. And I think it not only saves you cost with technicians going out, it also helps you get to market quickly. And that, absolutely, again, has a commercial benefit. Once the device is in production, it's all about the support and the ability to remotely manage it. Now, we've got some, great features like being able to remotely connect to a device, see what's on screen, interact with it. Very obvious when it demos very well. People love it when we're doing demos, but also being able to pull down logs from a device, or we can stream syslog from a device into the cloud. That is so beneficial to an engineer trying to debug an issue rather than having to go.
Very much so.
Those are massive features. So you should be able to completely manage and support these devices remotely. And not only do our customers have access to these facilities, then giving our support team the ability to dial into a device through our management system so that they can pull logs on our customer's behalf. It speeds up our whole support cycle. So that good support that John's talked about, partly it's enabled by being able to log in directly to the platform with the customer's permission, pull logs, analyze those, get a solution. And very often we can also push solutions down by reconfiguring the OS, because we've got a hugely configurable set of parameters for the OS. So, I'll often see the support team saying, well, change this parameter, change this configuration, increase the buffer. And so without doing a firmware upgrade for 6,000 devices, we fixed the problem. So that awesome. In-life support, that's a very valuable part. And then I think the last thing, the length of time that the device can continue to be used and deliver real value to the customer in the field is important. And so I do see media players out in the market where customers do not get firmware updates. They're shipping with Android 11 and they never get an update, and I don't understand that, because we're adding features every day that adds longevity to the device. It allows you to support new use cases. It means a device that's sold today can continue to serve a valuable job in 7, 8, 9 years' time. So your total cost of ownership, is much better. So. And Amino have devices, I know there are, H140s and all sorts of things out in the market, from 10, 15 years ago that customers are still quite happily using. And I think that's important. And, that all comes down to this thinking about the management and the life cycle of the device. And those are real commercial benefits. They're too often overlooked, by what's the purchase price of the device.
Well, I can speak to that too. That's a huge thing with the Amino devices. Our previous device, we deployed, and we no sooner had it deployed than we started to see failures in that hardware. And it's a big deal to have to redeploy a brand new device into all these rooms and to be able to get in them in a timely manner. And so having a device that does work for a long time, to be able to get those updates so that we're not constantly having to go back through rooms to switch them out has been very beneficial. And I even noticed on the back end with an Amino, it kind of gives you that life range or expected life cycle of the device right in there as to what you have left on it. So, and even after 5 years with our devices, I think we might be at 30%. So it, we're looking to get many more years out of them.
That's great. We did have one other question come in. Is there support for a USB wireless NIC or webcam via the USB?
Yes, there is. So we have customers. I mentioned prison projects a few minutes ago. We have customers using webcams, USB, keyboards, mouse, lots of different peripherals, and yeah, there's always a peripheral something that somebody finds that we don't have a driver for, but we have a pretty wide range of support. And again, it's partly driven by the fact that we're the fundamentals of this are Android, so it gives us a good leg up with the range of devices we can support.
Great. I'm going to put up some contact info. That's the last of our questions. If anybody has any questions, you can reach out to us at our website, amt.com, either email sales@amt.com or myself, T Sullivan @amt.com, and I will directly get in touch with John or Johnny and get some answers back. I've got some notes from our questions from the panel we had. Want to thank you both so much for your time and input today. Give you both the last word. If you have anything else you'd like to throw in there, we'll give John first.
Yeah, I don't have much else to throw in. I think we really touched on everything I wanted to touch on.
Great.
Yeah, we couldn't be happier with Amino and AMT. It's a
We
great thing.
appreciate it. We appreciate you, and thank you for your time and your input. We really appreciate it. Johnny, you get last word here.
Yeah, no,
you're up the latest.
It's great to get the opportunity to talk about what we've done with some of our key customers. Nice to get the good feedback and get the opportunity to talk about what we put into the product. So yeah, thank you very much, Tim, for hosting.
Awesome. No, absolutely. Thank everyone for joining. We're wrapping this up right now. So thanks again. If you have anything you need, feel free to reach out to, like I said, myself, or go to our website and hit us up, and we'll do our best to take care of you. Thanks again, everybody, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.